Most men live and die begging for confidence. They chase it like a ghost, whispering affirmations into the mirror, pretending their trembling hands are steady. But the few who truly find it, those rare, unnerving few, look almost inhuman. Their calm feels surgical. Their silence feels like dominance. They don't smile to reassure you. They don't rush to fill the gaps in conversation. They don't need your comfort. What they possess is not charisma. It is weaponized control of the self. Confidence in its purest form is not the warmth of belief. It's the coldness of mastery, and the world, obsessed with noise and validation, is terrified of men who no longer beg for permission to move. You've been told that confidence comes from loving yourself, from acceptance, from gentle affirmations and self-esteem workshops. Lies. Confidence does not bloom in comfort. It is forged in internal warfare. You build it by killing the parts of yourself that crave applause. Modern men are taught to seek peace before they have earned it, to display humility before they have conquered anything, to smile as they are stepped on. They confuse submission with virtue. They call it emotional intelligence, when it's really fear disguised as kindness. And so they walk through life apologizing for their own power, shrinking their presence so they can be tolerated by weaker minds. You can see this infection everywhere. The man who speaks too fast, afraid that silence will expose his uncertainty. The executive who apologizes mid-sentence because someone frowned. The lover who edits his own thoughts, terrified that honesty might break the illusion that keeps him from being abandoned. These are not acts of grace. They are symptoms of dependence, the disease of the approval addicted. Their words are their chains. They fill every pause, laugh at every cue, and soften every truth to avoid rejection. They don't live. They negotiate their existence through endless self-betrayal. A truly confident man does not seek to please. He seeks to position. He calculates where to speak, where to hold, and when to let silence work as his executioner. You call it arrogance, because it exposes your need to be liked. But arrogance is just confidence without apology. The man who has nothing to prove cannot be humiliated, because he has already withdrawn his worth from your judgment. You could insult him, ignore him, or try to challenge him, and he would respond with the same unnerving calm because you are not part of his equation. His reality does not orbit your approval. It bends around his will. This is the first awakening of power, realizing that confidence is not about being loud, but about being immovable. When your sense of worth no longer fluctuates with others' opinions, your presence begins to intimidate. You become unreactive in a world addicted to reactions. You stand still while others flinch. And that stillness, that unyielding composure, feels like violence to those who live on emotional chaos. They'll call you cold, distant, even cruel. But what they're really saying is, you cannot be controlled. The confident man's silence terrifies because it cannot be manipulated. Understand this. Society rewards the docile. It wants you agreeable, self-doubting, eager to fit in. Every institution, from schools to relationships, conditions you to suppress dominance in favor of harmony. But harmony is a sedative. It numbs ambition, dulls instinct, and destroys the will to command. That's why most men live ordinary lives. They mistake peace for power. The Machiavellian truth is harsher. Peace without leverage is weakness. The calmest man in the room is only powerful if he could destroy the room and chooses not to. Confidence without control is just arrogance pretending to be strength. You must unlearn everything that made you soft. You must stop trying to appear good and start becoming formidable. Confidence is not found in acceptance, it's found in precision. The ability to move without permission, to speak when necessary, to act when others hesitate. It is the art of quiet decisiveness. When you enter a room, you do not look around for approval. You assess it. You measure the air, the posture, the hierarchy. You learn who leads, who follows, who pretends, and then you move as if every outcome was already written in your favor. That's not hope, that's control. You don't chase comfort, you weaponize discomfort until it obeys you. This is what separates the weak from the ruthless. The weak rehearse confidence, the ruthless embody it. They don't say, "I can handle this," they know they can, and that knowing is carved into them by silence, solitude, and self-dominion. They do not need witnesses to their strength because the discipline itself is proof. While the world shouts, they calculate. While the world seeks comfort, they embrace pressure. Every hesitation you still allow is a wound you refuse to cauterize. Every time you over-explain, you confess your dependence. You're either the man who fills silence to feel safe, or the man whose silence fills others with fear. Confidence is the ability to act as if the world already belongs to you. Not through delusion, but through discipline. It's the authority to move, speak, and decide without waiting for consent. And that authority comes from the internal conquest of hesitation. You do not need to be liked, understood, or approved. You need to be precise, detached, and dangerous. When the average man trembles before confrontation, you will feel stillness. When he chokes under pressure, you will breathe slower. That is not luck, it is training. You will have burned away the need to be seen, leaving only the will to act. The truly confident man is not the loudest. He's the one everyone looks at before they speak. So ask yourself, when the world demands that you prove your worth, will you speak, or will you let silence prove it for you? Doubt is the executioner of greatness. It doesn't strike loudly. It bleeds you slowly, one hesitation at a time. The man who hesitates has already lost, not because the world was faster, but because his own mind betrayed him first. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the domination of hesitation. You do not become decisive because you're certain. You become decisive because uncertainty disgusts you. The confident man moves while others analyze. He does not ask whether he is ready. He acts, and his movement makes him ready. This is the death of doubt, when motion becomes your religion, and hesitation becomes your sin. Weak men are haunted by the need for clarity. They tell themselves they must be sure before they act, but life is not generous with certainty. The ruthless understand this early. Certainty is an illusion, and waiting for it is the death of opportunity. Every hesitation you allow is an invitation for another man to seize what could have been yours. Doubt is not a lack of information, it is a lack of will. You will never know everything, but you can decide everything. Power belongs not to those who understand the most, but to those who move first and correct later. The world does not remember those who were cautious, it remembers those who moved before the dust settled. Every time you stop to question your capability, you give fear a heartbeat. You resurrect weakness. You turn your mind into a courtroom where your own ambitions are put on trial, and the verdict is always the same: guilty of dreaming too much. Hesitation feeds itself. One pause becomes a habit. One delay becomes an identity. Before long, you become the man who almost did everything. The man who planned well, spoke wisely, and achieved nothing. You'll justify it as patience, but deep down you'll know the truth. You hesitated because you feared consequence more than regret. And men who fear consequence are never free. Confidence is born from violence against indecision. The Machiavellian man kills his doubts as they arise. He doesn't argue with them, he executes them. His instinct is trained by repetition, by forcing himself to act when his body screams to wait. Every decisive act reinforces dominance. You cannot think your way into confidence, you must earn it through motion. Move before your fear finishes its sentence. Speak before comfort intervenes. Decide when others delay. The world submits to those who move because movement creates narrative, and narrative creates perception. Once perception solidifies, truth bends to the man who dared to act. Observe the world carefully. The decisive man creates direction. The hesitant man becomes directionless. One controls time, the other is consumed by it. You've seen it in war, in politics, in love. The man who acts shapes the outcome. The one who pauses becomes a statistic in another's story. You will hear people tell you that doubt is wisdom. They are wrong. Doubt disguised as humility is the most elegant form of cowardice. True wisdom is the ability to decide in darkness. You do not wait for light to see the path. You become the light that burns the path into existence. To hesitate is to hand the pen to someone else and let them write your fate. You may believe your hesitation keeps you safe, but it only prolongs your suffering. Safety is the comfort of the untested. It breeds stagnation, not strength. Doubt convinces you that thinking longer will make the decision cleaner, but clarity only arrives after you've bled for it. The confident man acts knowing he might fail, because failure clarifies, while hesitation only decays. You cannot analyze your way to confidence. You must crush uncertainty through exposure, through repeated confrontation with discomfort, until fear becomes familiar. Doubt dies not from thought, but from impact. In the end, hesitation is not a moment, it's a pattern. Every time you pause to consider your worth, you strengthen the walls that imprison you. Every time you delay an action out of fear, you rehearse surrender. The world belongs to those who make decisions while others are still processing possibilities. The confident man doesn't wait for permission or reassurance. He acts, and by acting, he rewrites the terms of reality. Doubt kills silently, but decisiveness resurrects the dead parts of your will. So when your mind begins to whisper all the reasons you shouldn't move, will you listen, or will you move before the whisper becomes a command? To see clearly, you must first stop feeling. Emotion clouds perception, and perception is power. The man who reacts through feeling never sees what is actually in front of him, only what his ego wants to see. Confidence begins to rot the moment emotion dictates interpretation. To be cold is not to be cruel, it is to be accurate. And accuracy in judgment separates those who rule from those who serve. When you strip away your emotional bias, people become transparent. Their tone, their posture, their timing, all of it reveals intent. The emotional man sees kindness or cruelty. The Machiavellian man sees strategy. You've been raised to believe that empathy is virtue, but empathy without boundaries is submission. When you allow emotion to distort perception, you hand the world the keys to your clarity. The strong observe people as systems of motive. They do not judge morality, they measure leverage. They do not label someone good or bad. They identify utility or threat. To see without distortion is the highest act of control. Imagine walking through a room where everyone else is acting from insecurity, pride, or desire, while you move through it like a ghost, detached, reading the weaknesses printed on their faces. That is not manipulation. That is awareness elevated to dominance. The art of cold perception begins with restraint. You must resist the urge to react. The moment you rush to interpret someone's tone or intention, you reveal your hunger to be understood. The powerful man observes first, always. Silence is his microscope. When someone lies, he doesn't accuse, he measures the tremor in their eyes. When someone flatters, he doesn't smile, he listens for the desperation behind the praise. The weak want to feel safe, the strong want to understand. Confidence without perception is blind aggression, but perception without emotion is precision warfare. The Machiavellian man knows that humans are predictable because their emotions are repetitive. The anxious repeat patterns of reassurance. The arrogant repeat performances of dominance. The fearful repeat excuses. When you learn to see these cycles, you begin to command without speaking. You know exactly what to give and what to withhold to move people. Cold perception turns chaos into a script, and every person into a character playing their role exactly as expected. This is how you bend the world quietly, by reading it more accurately than it reads you. To cultivate this, you must detach from judgment. You must stop labeling people as right or wrong, kind or cruel. Those are emotional categories. Replace them with useful or useless, loyal or volatile, strong or fragile. You cannot navigate power dynamics while clinging to moral simplicity. Every saint hides a shadow. Every villain serves a purpose. The ruler sees both and uses both. Your confidence will become unshakable when your understanding of people becomes amoral, when you can sit across from deceit and feel nothing but curiosity. The world belongs to those who see patterns where others see personalities. You will be tempted to soften again, to explain yourself, to justify your detachment, to prove you still have a heart. That impulse is weakness disguised as virtue. Cold perception is not cruelty, it is the discipline of clarity. You cannot lead what you overfeel. You cannot predict what you overpity. The world will accuse you of being heartless, but they mistake stillness for emptiness. The man who no longer reacts emotionally sees 10 moves ahead. He can sense fear in others the way animals sense storms. He uses calm like a scalpel, cutting through illusion with a single stare. Most men are slaves to interpretation. They react, project, and drown in meaning. But the man of perception has transcended it. He watches people reveal themselves without interference. Their words confess what their silence hides. Their eyes betray their stories before they speak. You will see everything: the insecurity behind confidence, the calculation behind kindness, the agenda behind generosity. And once you see it, you will never unsee it. So ask yourself, when your emotions beg you to feel, will you obey them, or will you watch them coldly as they betray you? Detachment is not the absence of emotion, it is the mastery of it. The undisciplined man is enslaved by feeling, The disciplined man uses it as a signal, not a command. Detachment is the armor of confidence. When you no longer react to the pull of emotion, you become untouchable. The world loses its grip on your pulse. People's anger no longer infects you. Their praise no longer seduces you. Their love no longer distracts you. This is not coldness, it's control. And in a world where men are ruled by reaction, control is the rarest and most lethal form of power. You will hear them say that to feel deeply is to live fully. But those who drown in feeling mistake chaos for life. They are slaves to every rise and fall of mood, every comment, every look. Their emotions decide their words, their tone, their next move. And so they are predictable, programmable. The Machiavellian man feels everything but obeys nothing. He studies his emotions the way a strategist studies terrain, not to indulge in it, but to use it. He observes anger, but does not strike from it. He recognizes sadness, but does not fall into it. He sees desire, but does not bow before it. He turns feeling into data, and data into dominance. Detachment begins where reaction ends. The more you need something emotionally, the less you control it. Need makes you weak. It gives leverage to others. The man who cannot walk away is already conquered, no matter how loudly he speaks of confidence. Detachment is the power to remain unmoved, even when your instincts scream for validation. It's the ability to let a woman pull away, a friend betray, a crowd reject, and still not flinch, because you know that your worth was never tied to their response. Detachment is not emotional absence, it's emotional authority. You no longer serve your feelings, they serve you. The discipline of detachment is learned in solitude. In the silence where no one is watching, you learn whether you own your mind or your mind owns you. Most men crumble when the noise fades. Their thoughts turn against them because they've built identity from others' reactions. But when you sit in silence long enough, you begin to hear the truth beneath thought. You begin to see how many of your emotions were never yours to begin with. How much of your anger, insecurity, and need for recognition were inherited, conditioned, and rehearsed. Detachment is self-purification. It's the process of burning away every illusion of control until all that remains is real control. You will notice how the detached man moves differently. His calm feels unnatural. He does not rush to answer when accused, nor chase when ignored. His restraint unnerves people. They expect reaction because that's how they maintain control. When you don't react, you shift the entire power dynamic. Detachment creates a psychological vacuum. People rush to fill it with explanation, guilt, and confession. The less you reveal, the more they project. The less you move, the more they expose themselves. This is not manipulation, it's physics. When you are still, the restless reveal their truth. Detachment turns your silence into interrogation. Emotionally disciplined men are rare because discipline feels unnatural to the weak. It feels lifeless, joyless, robotic. But what they call lifelessness is freedom from compulsion. The detached man can love without losing himself, give without being drained, and walk away without regret. His stillness is not emptiness, it is fullness contained. He acts with precision because he is not blinded by passion. Passion without control is chaos. Control without passion is calculation. Detachment fuses both. It's the ability to feel deeply while deciding coldly. And that duality terrifies those who depend on emotional chaos to feel alive. To live detached is to live untouchable, but it comes at a cost. You will be misunderstood. You will be accused of arrogance, cruelty, or indifference. Let them speak. The world worships comfort and fears composure. The disciplined man doesn't explain his calm, he weaponizes it. In time, people will orbit your stillness, drawn by something they can't name, the gravity of a man who no longer seeks to be moved. So when the world shakes, when chaos demands your reaction, will you tremble with it, or will you watch, motionless as it trembles for you? Fear is the language of the masses. It governs every glance, every silence, every hesitation. Most men spend their lives pretending to be brave while arranging their entire existence to avoid discomfort. They choose predictability over risk, apology over assertion, illusion over power. But a man who learns to see fear, not just his own but everyone else's, unlocks a kind of vision that borders on the divine. Fear exposes truth faster than words ever could. It reveals priorities, loyalties, and weaknesses in their purest form. The man who understands fear does not need to intimidate, he simply stands there, calm, and lets others unravel in the reflection of their own trembling. People's insecurities are not flaws, they are levers. Every human being carries an invisible architecture of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of insignificance, fear of being seen as small. They call it humility, but it's camouflage. They smile to mask anxiety, overshare to preempt judgment, perform to prove they belong. Watch closely and you'll see it. The eyes flicker, the voice quickens, the laughter overstays its welcome. These are not random gestures, they are defensive maneuvers. The Machiavellian man doesn't mock them, he measures them. He studies how people retreat, where their pride hides, how they react when silence replaces reassurance. In those moments, they confess everything about who they are and what they'll surrender to feel safe. You cannot control a man without understanding what controls him. The weak fear loss, so you threaten withdrawal. The proud fear humiliation, so you threaten exposure. The ambitious fear irrelevance, so you offer acknowledgement. Most interactions are not battles of logic, they are chess matches of fear. The one who recognizes this controls the board. Confidence, therefore, is not bravado, it's the calm awareness of everyone else's emotional architecture. When you enter a room knowing what people fear losing, you already own it. And when you own it, you no longer have to raise your voice, prove your worth, or demand authority. It's given to you in silent surrender. But you must first conquer your own fear before you can read another's. The fearful man cannot observe clearly, his survival instinct blinds him. Every judgment he makes is contaminated by self-preservation. To rule fear, you must dissect it. You must identify its anatomy, the moment it enters your chest, how it changes your tone, how it makes your hands twitch and your thoughts race. Then you must refuse to obey. Do not suppress it, watch it. The act of watching transforms it. When fear is observed without obedience, it dissolves. It feeds on reaction. The man who feels fear but doesn't flinch becomes a living paradox. His presence confuses the world. They sense danger, but they cannot define it. He becomes the calm inside the storm, and that calm is terrifying. Fear is also the foundation of loyalty. People are loyal to whoever protects them from their deepest anxieties. A leader who provides comfort commands obedience, but a leader who provides safety commands devotion. The Machiavellian man does not promise love, he promises certainty. In a world drowning in insecurity, certainty feels divine. His stillness becomes sanctuary, his composure becomes myth. Others will mistake it for strength, but it's not strength, it's understanding. He knows what people are running from. He knows that even those who seem confident are just managing fear more gracefully. Once you see that compassion and control merge into one, you guide through fear, not away from it. The mirror of fear does not only reveal others, it reflects you. The same terror you exploit in others once ruled you. That's why control must never turn into cruelty. The disciplined man uses fear as a lens, not as a weapon. To abuse it is to regress into the same weakness you overcame. True power is silent comprehension, not sadistic manipulation. When you can look into the trembling eyes of another and see your former self, you have achieved dominion without losing humanity. Cold, yes, but still conscious. Detached, but not dead. The mastery of fear is not the absence of empathy, it's empathy stripped of self-delusion. So understand this. Every interaction, every negotiation, every relationship you will ever enter is built upon a quiet exchange of fears. The one who sees them rules them. The one who hides from them serves them. The world belongs to the calm observer who watches fear flow through others, like blood through veins, visible, predictable, useful. Most men will spend their lives trying to prove they aren't afraid. You will spend yours mastering why they are. So when fear begins to whisper in the room, yours or theirs, will you answer it, or will you let the silence of your composure make everyone else listen? Silence is the final weapon of the confident. Words can be argued, but silence cannot be refuted. It is an authority that demands submission, because it denies others what they crave most: validation. Weak men talk to fill air. Powerful men let air do the talking. When you master the command of silence, you become unreadable. People project their own fears and fantasies into your stillness, and in doing so, they reveal more than you ever could. The Machiavellian man understands this. Silence is not the absence of speech, it is the architecture of dominance. It turns a room into a stage, and your restraint into its center. Most men waste words as if they cost nothing. They talk to prove intelligence, to display confidence, to signal belonging. But in their eagerness to be heard, they make themselves transparent. They show their intentions, their insecurities, their hunger. Every unnecessary word weakens position. The man who always explains himself communicates one thing clearly: he fears misunderstanding. The Machiavellian man has no such fear. He speaks rarely and precisely, because he understands that mystery commands attention. When he chooses to remain silent, his restraint generates gravity. People lean in, desperate to interpret meaning where none was given. This is how silence bends power. It turns the listener into the pursuer. Observe any room long enough, and you'll see the hierarchy of noise. The lowest speak the loudest, mistaking volume for influence. The highest speak the least, knowing attention is a finite resource to be rationed strategically. True command begins when your silence becomes more persuasive than another man's argument. A calm gaze, a slow breath, an unbroken stare. These are not passive gestures, they are psychological dominance. The weak man debates, the strong man waits. Every second you remain composed while another scrambles to fill space increases your authority. You don't compete for dominance, you let others forfeit it by exposing their need to be seen. Silence also reveals the desperate nature of human validation. People cannot bear unresponsiveness. They will explain themselves to your stillness, justify their own actions, even confess their weaknesses, simply to escape the pressure of your calm. This is not cruelty, it's human reflex. The Machiavellian man doesn't interrupt, he allows the silence to work. The untrained call this manipulation, but it is simply observation weaponized. To withhold words is to force others into confrontation with themselves. Every moment of silence becomes a mirror, reflecting what they fear to see. Most will fill it with excuses. The rare few will meet your stillness and match it, and those are the ones worth keeping near. The command of silence also sharpens your perception. When you're not constantly speaking, you begin to notice micro-signals that others miss. The shift in tone, the flicker in the eyes, the tremor in a laugh. People reveal entire philosophies between words. The untrained mind drowns in noise. The disciplined one decodes the pauses. Silence gives you the advantage of time. It allows your mind to observe before reacting, to detect the lie before it's complete. You learn to read meaning in absence, not just presence. And once you master that, you can walk through life like a strategist, predicting moves before they're made, commanding attention before you speak. But the power of silence is most dangerous when combined with restraint under pressure. The weak man collapses in noise. He panics, defends, over-explains. The strong man remains calm, even when attacked, misunderstood or provoked. His silence under fire breaks people more than shouting ever could. It creates unease. They interpret his composure as confidence, then as contempt, and finally as power. The truth is simpler, it is control. Silence under tension is the purest proof of dominance. It says, "You cannot move me." And that realization unravels the minds of those who depend on reaction to feel significant. To command silence is to command reality. Every empire, every dynasty, every legend began with one man who could wait longer than others could speak. When you speak less, your words weigh more. When you withhold reaction, your presence magnifies. The command of silence turns conversation into strategy, tension into leverage, and uncertainty into obedience. People will call you distant. They will mistake your stillness for arrogance. Let them. Their noise builds your legend. So when the moment comes and the world demands your answer, will you rush to explain yourself, or will you let silence deliver the verdict for you? Ruthlessness is not cruelty. It is purity of intent. It is the removal of hesitation, sentiment, and apology from the act of power. The world confuses it with evil, because most people cannot imagine acting without seeking approval. But the ruthless man has transcended that addiction. He no longer measures right and wrong by emotion, but by outcome. When he strikes, it is not out of anger. When he withholds, it is not out of fear. He acts because the act is necessary. His calm aggression is not violence, it's precision. It is the steady hand that cuts away the diseased parts of weakness so that strength can grow. The aura of ruthlessness is born not from cruelty, but from uncompromising clarity. You can feel it when such a man enters a room. The atmosphere thickens, conversation shifts, people lower their tone, unsure why they feel smaller. They sense something primal but controlled. It's not rage, it's restraint. True ruthlessness has no chaos in it, it's too focused. The ruthless man does not shout, does not rush, does not boast. His calm is the silence before a verdict. His eyes carry the weight of decisions already made. When he says little, it's because he already knows the outcome. That certainty terrifies people. They call it arrogance, but it's something deeper, the spiritual stillness of a man who knows he cannot be influenced. Ruthlessness demands sacrifice. To live this way, you must destroy the softer parts of your identity, the compulsions to explain, to please, to be understood. The moment you start caring how others interpret your strength dies. Most people dilute their own power out of fear of being disliked. They try to appear harmless because they confuse acceptance with safety. But safety does not exist for men who pursue greatness. The ruthless man understands that comfort is the trap and reputation is the cage. To command both fear and loyalty, you must be willing to lose both comfort and popularity. You will be misunderstood, hated, even demonized. That is the price of clarity. The aura of ruthlessness does not come from external displays of dominance. It radiates from inner alignment. The man who no longer argues with himself emanates certainty. Every word, every glance, every gesture flows from a single, undivided will. People sense it instinctively. They cannot fake it, and they cannot resist it. That's why ruthlessness inspires both loyalty and terror. Followers feel protected by it. Rivals feel exposed by it. The same composure that comforts the loyal burns the insecure. They see in your stillness the reflection of their own confusion. Your calm becomes their discomfort. Your control becomes their accusation. This duality is what gives power its weight. It divides the room into those who serve and those who retreat. There's a reason ruthlessness and loyalty often coexist. People crave to serve what they cannot become. When they sense that your conviction will not bend for their feelings, they begin to trust you. Because stability, even when cold, is more sacred than warmth that wavers. The ruthless man is predictable in his discipline. He does not act out of impulse, he acts out of necessity. His followers learn that his approval cannot be bought, only earned. And that scarcity creates devotion. To the world, he seems merciless. To those under his protection, he feels immovable. This is the paradox of ruthless calm. It terrifies the unworthy and fortifies the loyal. But you must guard your ruthlessness carefully. Without direction, it decays into cruelty. Without purpose, it becomes tyranny. You do not destroy for pleasure. You destroy to preserve order. You do not cut to wound, you cut to heal. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, only because fear sustains where love fades. But he also knew that unnecessary cruelty collapses empires from within. True ruthlessness is moral clarity stripped of sentiment, not conscience stripped of morality. You act not to dominate for its own sake, but to maintain control over yourself and the order you command. Anything less is chaos disguised as strength. The aura of ruthlessness is the final test of discipline. When others seek comfort in approval, you will find peace in precision. When others dilute truth to avoid conflict, you will speak it plainly, knowing it isolates you. When others break under the weight of consequence, you will stand unmoved because you have already made peace with loss. This is what separates leaders from followers, conquerors from appeasers. So when power tempts you to soften, when the world demands you explain your strength, will you bend to be understood? Or will you let your silence remind them that you were never asking for permission? There comes a point where confidence no longer feels human. It turns into something colder, harder, like steel forged too many times in the same fire. That is the final lesson, transformation. When you have buried doubt, mastered silence, and detached from emotion, what remains is not a man trying to control himself, it is control itself, given flesh. You no longer perform confidence, you radiate inevitability. People sense it before you speak. They feel it in the stillness of your movements, in the precision of your gaze, in the absence of hesitation. This is what it means to be psychologically untouchable, to walk through chaos with a pulse that never changes. But understand, this state is not peace. It is power distilled to its purest form. You become incapable of flinching because you have already accepted the price of power, isolation. The world cannot comfort what it cannot control. They will call you dangerous, manipulative, emotionless. They will misread your calm as emptiness. But it's not emptiness, it's structure, the scaffolding of a mind that no longer bends to fear or praise. You stop reacting to life and start shaping it. Every gesture, every decision, every pause becomes deliberate. And once your mind reaches this level of command, the world becomes unnervingly quiet because there is nothing left to chase, only to rule. The transformation is subtle at first. You notice it when someone insults you and your heartbeat doesn't change, when a threat appears and your body doesn't flinch, when success arrives and you feel nothing but calculation. You start realizing how much of your old self was noise, how much of your personality was defense, distraction, or disguise. What replaces it is not happiness, but lucidity. You see through everything, motives, illusions, patterns. You see how often people confuse drama for depth, emotion for truth, and confidence for noise. You stop participating in their theater. You simply observe, and that observation alone makes you sovereign. But this transformation carries danger. The more control you acquire, the less human you seem. People will project onto you, some with worship, others with hatred. They will test you, trying to prove you still bleed. They will try to make you react because your calm exposes their chaos. Some will mistake your composure for arrogance and attempt to break it just to feel powerful again. Do not resent them. They are prisoners of noise trying to disturb the silence that condemns them. But beware, the longer you live in control, the more tempting it becomes to view humanity as weakness. That temptation is where power begins to rot. A man who feels nothing becomes a machine, and machines do not lead, they devour. The true master of control is not emotionless. He is emotionally contained. He feels everything but is enslaved by nothing. Detachment without compassion becomes tyranny. Ruthlessness without restraint becomes madness. The Machiavellian ideal is balance within dominance, the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to choose when not to. You must remain aware that the line between mastery and monstrosity is not external, it lives within you. The stronger your mind becomes, the more dangerous your apathy will feel. Control is holy when it serves purpose. It's hellish when it serves ego. At the final stage of confidence, you no longer fear being misunderstood. You no longer chase clarity, reputation, or legacy. You simply act in alignment with what you know must be done. Confidence becomes instinct. Discipline becomes identity. Detachment becomes mercy. And yet, in the rare moments of stillness, you might catch yourself wondering, have I become what I once feared? When people look at you and see nothing but composure, do they see control or absence? Have you mastered your humanity or erased it? You will not find answers in books or philosophy, only in the quiet weight of your own reflection. So when you finally stand at that edge, no longer shaken, no longer swayed, no longer needing to prove or explain, and the world watches, waiting for a glimpse of weakness, will you hold your silence as power, or will you realize, too late, that the silence has swallowed you whole? If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you already knows this truth. Confidence isn't born, it's built in the dark. It's carved from humiliation, rejection, and quiet rage. The timid self must die before the powerful one can live. Now tell me in the comments, are you ready to burn your old identity and rebuild from nothing? Are you willing to be feared before you are understood? If this message touched you, if it made sense, write in the comments, I have no fear. Let's see how many here are truly ready to become psychopathically confident. And don't forget, keep watching the next video, it's important. Much more than you imagine. See you there.